The long wait is finally over as the sequel to the best surprise film of 2014 in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has finally arrived, bringing even more action, even more laughs, but even less Groot. You know, like size-wise. As director, James Gunn certainly doesn't disappoint going all out in this big budget follow-up. But like any Marvel film, the ending always leaves questions to be answered afterwards, so before I go any further, here's your official spoiler warning, where everything we hear from here on out has major movie-ruining spoilers to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, so you've been warned. Also keep in mind in this video that I won't be going into much depth as far as the post-credit scenes, except for the one where Aisha refers to Adam. If you want, there's a link in the description, and at the end of this video, if you want to get an in-depth breakdown on all 5 of those scenes. So the questions we're left with, in case you missed them, are: what was the deep, dark, secret twist that left viewers shocked about Peter's father, Ego? Why did new fan favorite Yondu decide to sacrifice his life in order to save Peter Quill? And what's the setup for the now confirmed by Marvel President Kevin Feige Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? So what Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is really about is the idea of who is really your father figure in life. We all have biological fathers, but it doesn't mean they were always the one to raise us into the deeply damaged people we've become. Or maybe that's just me. Anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 plays with this idea with Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet, serving as Peter Quill's biological father, even though it was Yondu who was there to raise Peter into the man who would later become known as Star-Lord. The biggest mystery from the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, though, was how can someone who was seemingly a mere mortal in Quill handle touching an Infinity Stone without dying? And we finally get our answer in Ego the Living Planet. It's explained that Ego was actually a Celestial, and for those who don't know, Celestials are the most ancient and powerful beings in the Marvel Universe, and were actually the first beings ever created, like, ever, playing a lot with the idea of being what we know as God. And I mean, if Snake Plissken wants to say he's a god, I'm not gonna argue with him. Are you? No. Anyway, Ego's origin in the film is a little different than in the comics. In this Ego's case, he started life as a conscience in the form of a brain, slowly building himself up into a living planet with the brain in the center, eventually taking human form as it was the most appealing to other humans, and finding life on Earth in Meredith Quill. And then having a half-human, half-god-like child in Peter Quill. Ego explains to Peter that his human form couldn't be on Earth with his mother for long, because then he would wither away. But the big twist comes when sisters Gamora and Nebula end up finding catacombs under the surface of Ego's planet, with the skeletal remains of what we learn are Ego's former children all across the conceivable universe. Ego explains about his origins that when he did eventually find other life in the universe, he was disappointed, and only sees other people's lives as temporary. So he started what he called the Expansion, in which he literally planted a part of himself on every life-carrying planet he landed on, because he basically wants to obliterate the universe in order to power his planet. It also explained that Ego had basically hooked up with more women across the galaxy than Genghis Khan and Gene Simmons combined. And that's like a lot of women. And all those bones in the catacombs were Ego's failed kids, as Peter Quill had the only connection to the light of Ego's planet, basically meaning only he had carried Ego's celestial gene. As the final fight ensues and everyone tries to destroy Ego, comes the revelation to Peter that the man who took him from Earth in Yondu has been more of a father to him than Ego ever was. Which might sound slightly Stockholm Syndrome-y, but Yondu actually did it to save Peter's life, because he knew from his line near the end of Guardians 1, when he and Kraken talk about not doing what they were initially hired to do in delivering Peter to his father, and Yondu's line of, "I heard that guy's a jackass." There's also a similar line from Aisha earlier in the film, when she gets a read on Peter's DNA, and says she sees a destructive genealogy to him. Anyway, Yondu also gives Peter a big piece of advice. As Peter struggles to harness his new celestial power, Yondu explains that he doesn't actually fly his arrow with his whistle, but actually with his heart. Peter then uses this knowledge to hold off his father while the bomb goes off that ends up destroying him. Unfortunately though, without the light of Ego's planet, Peter can no longer use his newly discovered celestial powers now or in any future films. And then there's Yondu, not feeling satisfied with anything he's done in his life and knowing he and his crew have been exiled from the Ravagers, and that when he dies he will not receive a ceremonial funeral under the order of Sylvester Stallone's Starhawk, decides with his last act he might as well go out like a hero, saving Peter from the destroyed Ego's planet, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because he also sees Peter as his son. And as for Yondu's emotional Ravager funeral, it's because of the news spreading of his last heroic act that the people that exile him in Starhawk and the rest of the Ravager clans that he gets his beautiful and ceremonial send-off. And then as for the final scene, as the screen fades to black on Rocket Raccoon's tear, it's Rocket Raccoon's realization that he was like Yondu, and that you can basically be a dick for your entire life, but when you start acting like a hero is when people will always have your back and treat you like a human being. But if that's the case, I don't want to see Rocket start being nice to everybody. I mean, do you want to see that? I hope he's still kind of a jerk. And by the way, whenever the Guardians of the Galaxy do eventually meet the Avengers at some point, there's no guarantee that the Avenger crew is even going to be able to understand Rocket or what any of the other non-human Guardians are saying. Example, in Guardians 1 when Peter is being scanned by the Nova Corps, you'll see that it says translator implant in neck. There are many alien races in the MCU, and with this implant Peter can understand them all. So if, say, Tony Stark and Rocket Raccoon meet for the first time, how would that conversation even go?
My name is Tony Stark and I'm not afraid of you.
And as for the setup to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, there was a rumor of Adam Warlock making an appearance in this film, and that comes in the form of the third credits scene after the film's end, when Aisha is swearing vengeance at the Guardians and the camera pans to essentially a gold cocoon and says, "I think I shall call him Adam." Aisha and her sovereign race are all made by design and designed to be perfect. Adam Warlock in this cocoon is meant to be the next stage of this perfect evolution, and he will be the weapon that Aisha uses in an attempt to destroy the Guardians. As for who will play Adam Warlock, or the direction James Gunn will take with this character, as he will once again write and direct Guardians of the Galaxy 3, it is still unknown. But as soon as I get any breaking news on that, I'll be sure to let you all know here first. And that's everything I have for the ending explained of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below, and tell me your thoughts on the film. Also, with all the new Marvel films coming out within the next few years, if you were only given the choice to watch one of these movies, which would it be? And who would you pick as your fan casting for Adam Warlock? And don't forget, as always, this is 5 Fingers Explains Everything with the Fingerbang Show. We are Groot.